Well, Women's Champions League kicked off yesterday. The first half of round one matchups ended with Juventus beating Benfica 2-1 thanks to an 86-minute goal. Paris FC and OL Leuven tied 2-2. Paris were up 2-0 at the half, but Leuven scored 2 second-half goals. 8-time winners of this competition, Lyon took down last year's Champions League winners, Arsenal and Barcelona. They thrashed Bayern Munich 7-1. Yes, that's not an error in that graphic. 7-1. But before we get into that game, Aaron, we've got to talk about this Arsenal-Lyon game because this is the one that we were definitely waiting to watch. When they faced off against each other last year in Champions League, it was Arsenal who took the win to eventually win it all. But Arsenal looked different coming into this matchup than they did last year. Yeah, they didn't. Arsenal didn't look nearly as sharp, nearly as motivated. And on the other side of that, OL Lyonnes looked incredibly sharp, incredibly motivated. We're going to hear the name Melchie Dumornay a lot this season. We heard it for the first time in Champions League last night. She is an incredible player, a singularly just unique talent who can affect games in so many different ways. This OL Lyonnes front line is terrifying. On top of Dumornay, a really big name that's been a constant for Lyon for a long time is Lindsey Heaps. So our crew here in the studio, they actually got to catch up with Lindsey Heaps post-game. So let's take a listen to that.
We knew with our press, with the players that we have, with the the front three especially, if we can go win the ball early and put them through, we're gonna create chances, we're gonna score goals. So I think that was a big thing for us, and we wanted to continue to do it throughout the game. We created a lot of opportunities. I think we could have scored more, but yeah, it was a major thing for us.
Lindsey, it seemed so apparent to me that your connection with Trader is so strong, even from early on in the season. Can you give us a bit of an insight how that's been having another American on the side when it comes to connection and flow of football, when there's some's dropping in or some's going loud? It just seemed like it flowed.
Yeah, I think actually early in the game we were sitting with one, and as soon as we made the adjustment, bringing Corbs back down and having two pivots, it helped so much in the game. And like you said, I think with both Americans here, it's nice. You play with them in the national team. You have that bit of connection, but they're footballers as well, so it's really easy for me to play and know what they want and their tendencies. You learn that very early on with good players like them.
Now, that was actually the very insightful part of that interview. There's one point where Lindsey couldn't hear, and then they just started talking about the nails. I know your daughter loved that because she's big into the nails, but very insightful from Lindsey Heaps. So let's welcome in another voice into the conversation, Lisa Carlin, our CBS Sports women's soccer analyst, who was part of yesterday's coverage as well for Women's Champions League. Lisa, in terms of this Arsenal-Lyon game, for the Arsenal side of things, what happened with them? What went wrong?
A lot went wrong, Claudia. Yeah, it looked like defensively there were a lot of holes and miscommunications, a little bit of disorganization at time for Arsenal as well. No, they started this game hot on the front foot with an opening goal from Alessia Russo to almost put a stamp on things. But the presence and pressure of Lyon's front three, as Aaron mentioned, with Diani, Katoto, Shawinga, it put Arsenal's back line under so much pressure. And without Leah Williamson, she is the captain for this team, the center back. She does so much for them, and she's out on injury right now. She hasn't played at all this year for Arsenal. That's a really big hole, and Williamson's absence is really shining a bright light on how disorganized they can be out of the back. The mispass from Van Dumselaar to Kapley, that's very uncharacteristic of those players. But when you have so much pressure rushing at you from the opposition's front line to put you and pin you back, that's where mistakes happen. You need composure. You need a little bit more structure in those moments from Arsenal. And we didn't get that. Now, this is just a really narrow 2-1 scoreline. This game was end to end. There were chances for Arsenal. They didn't capitalize on them. But I don't think we can count Arsenal out by any means. This is only match day one. This is exactly what the new format of Women's Champions League is set to do. Have big powerhouse teams match up, especially on match day one. And Arsenal, they can face a little bit of adversity in this. Remember last year, before they lifted the trophy on their way to the Champions League final, they were down in the quarterfinal, leg one against Real Madrid. They went down against Lyon in leg one of the semifinal, and they're still able to rally and come back. Now, winless in 4 isn't great for Renee Sledger. She's going to have to tweak some things heading into the weekend.
All right, you talk about powerhouses, Lise. When you look at this OL Lyon roster, just the first 11 is absolutely stacked. And then they can bring on players like Lily Johannes, Ada Hegerberg, Eula Brand, Damaris Egarola. It's a ridiculous amount of talent that they have. Tell me, I know it's early, but what is going to stop this OL Lyon side from winning the Champions League title this year?
Not much, Aaron. I'll tell you that. There's not much that can stop Lyon. Honestly, because of how complete Lyon is. And a lot of times you look at a managerial change and think, okay, that could be a weakness and a weak point. But with Jonathan Giraldez coming into Lyon, he won Champions League with Barcelona. He knows exactly what he's doing. And the other part of that interview with Lindsey Heaps and the show from yesterday talked about her experience working under Giraldez. It's been such a short amount of time. And Lindsey Heaps said that she has learned so much and that he's one of the best coaches that she has had. And that's saying a lot for almost a 15-year professional veteran in Heaps. But they are learning and they're making fine tweaks to things. It's the small details. And when a team is focused on the very small margins in a game, it makes them really, really hard to stop. And you're not even mentioning some of the other big names that Lyon has, right? Lily Johannes can come in off the bench and hurt teams. And I think we're seeing Corbin Schrader just starting to rise and hit her peak. This team is only going to get stronger throughout this competition. I don't know, Aaron. I'll call you when I find something that is going to stop this team.
We'll text.
Lisa, you said something about a small margin. You definitely can't use that phrase when you're talking about another matchup in the night.
Nope.
Barcelona with a 7-1 win over Bayern Munich. Does that scoreline say more about Barcelona, or does it say more about Bayern Munich coming out of that match?
To me, this says more about Bayern Munich. It's a bit more of an indictment on them because Bayern Munich is a very talented team. If you go through the roster, Claudia, they have Pernille Harder, they have Georgia Stanway, they have so many good players that know how to win, can compete at the highest level. Bayern is a very dominant possession playing style of team. But when you go against Barcelona, you can't do that. And that's where we got to see the stubbornness of Bayern Munich in this game because they didn't want to sit back, play in a low back block against Barcelona, which is one of the ways that you can slow down and stop Barcelona. But if you're stuck between wanting to high press, wanting to sit back a little bit, it just opens up so much space. And with players like Putellas, Payur, Brutes, Paruelo, Pino, all getting on the board and all playing on the pitch, I mean, we talk about an embarrassment of riches with Lyon. It's exactly what Barcelona has. 21 shots, 12 on target in this game. Barcelona was firing on all cylinders, and Bayern Munich didn't want to concede their game plan, and that's where this match hurt them.
Well, Lisa, let's see how today's matches play out because the rest of the round one matches do continue today. So let's take a look at the schedule that we have. We have FC Twente taking on Chelsea and Real Madrid versus Roma. Those are the two earlier matchups at 12:45 p.m. Eastern. And then at 3 p.m., we're followed by three matches. Manchester United taking on Vålerenga, St. Polten versus Atletico Madrid, and Wolfsburg versus PSG. And we'll see lots of Americans in action, guys. At Chelsea, it's Alyssa Thompson and Naomi Girma. They take on Twente. A notable absence, though, for them is Catarina Macario. At Manchester United, we've got Fallon Tullis-Joyce, who's taken on Vålerenga. Let's see what else we have here. At Chelsea, we have Crystal Dunn and Eva Gaetano, who are taking on Wolfsburg, and then for PSG.
Polten. Vålerenga, we've got Kovacs as well. Crystal Dunn playing for PSG and Gatino. That's going to be a really, really good game, that Wolfsburg PSG one. That's a high caliber matchup between the two of those.
Yeah, lots of notable Americans here. So it's time now for our Zillow New Home Search, brought to you by Zillow Agents, Tours, Loans, Homes, with a focus on Alyssa Thompson's arrival at Chelsea. You know, how do you see her continuing to be integrated with this club, Lisa?
Yeah, we're seeing how Sonia Bonpastor wants to deploy Alyssa Thompson because there are a lot of different attacking pieces. And the style that Sonia Bonpastor is tweaking with Chelsea this year is having a little bit more width, having more attacking players lower down the field. Alyssa Thompson has been playing in her 4 matches, 1 start, almost as a left wing back at times. They're asking more responsibility of her on both sides of the ball, having to track back defensively, making sure she's connected with the back line and the other midfielders, slotting in to fill some of those holes. But then she gets all the freedom in the world to do what she wants. That is go forward down the flanks with the ball at her feet, going 1v1. She's not expected to start in this Champions League matchup today for Chelsea against Twente, and I wouldn't want her to start anyway. That's not how you want to begin your European debut and your European campaign with a brand new team. Sit on the bench for the first 45 minutes, 60 minutes. Really assess what is happening in this game. Now, Twente is competition for Chelsea that Chelsea beat them twice last year in the Champions League, but they look a little bit stronger. They're a bit of a different team, and they want to take down Chelsea. It's going to be a battle, but for Alyssa Thompson, start on your bench, talk with the coaching staff throughout the first 45 minutes of the game, then see how you can implement yourself into the match with how everything has played out in the second half.